Chapter 1894. The Eight Rebellions of the Nobles. Xian Haixio recognized the Maybach. North Africa was already poor, and after the end of the world, ordinary vehicles had to be modified or dismantled to make other production equipment because they could not adapt to icy and snowy roads. The Prussian Mercedes-Benz company also built cold-resistant snow vehicles for the end-of-the-world environment. Maybach is the highest-end model of their brand. There is only one car in the entire country of Cage, and it was transported all the way from Europe through special channels. The user of this car is naturally the leader of the Cage Kingdom, Commander Ken Shan. However, it does not belong to the commander, but to the people of the entire Cagey country. The commander only has the right to use it 24 hours a day. When Xian Haixio saw the black Maybach, his heart sank. His hands and feet were cold, and his expression was dull. Could it be that the commander had discovered that he and his wife were planning to flee the kingdom of Cage? He could hardly imagine the consequences of that. Perhaps he would be executed by cannon like some others before him. At this moment, the officer who was standing at the door of the apartment, watching the changes around him with his sharp eyes like a hawk, discovered Xian Haixio. It was Chui Ze, the captain of the guard. When Chui Ze saw Xian Haixio, there was no special expression on his face. He just walked towards him. Xian Haixio stood there in a daze, but it was impossible for him to escape in front of Chui Ze. Not to mention that his wife Li Qingmei was still upstairs. Just considering how powerful Chui Ze is as the captain of the commander-in-chief's guard, he doesn't even dare to hope to escape under the other party's nose. Chui Ze came up to Xian Haixio and asked in a calm tone, "Where have you been? Why did you come back just now?" Xian Haixio had purchased supplies under his coat, and Chui Ze could not escape this scene, but he did not ask any more questions. Xian Haixio swallowed and said, "I went to buy some things. My wife and I have an anniversary in a while." Hearing this, Chui Ze raised the corners of his mouth slightly. "You have a good wife." This double entendre made Xian Haixio almost want to punch Chui Ze in the face. But he still managed to smile. Chui Ze rarely took out a cigarette from his pocket and handed it to Xian Haixio. The two of them smoked, and Chui Ze said casually, "There are many women around the commander, and your wife seems to be the one he loves the most. Because there are few people who can make the commander come so many times." Xian Haixio didn't know what to say. When he thought of his wife being tortured upstairs, his heart was bleeding. Haha. He could only suppress the urge to go crazy and smile awkwardly. Chui Ze continued, "The commander has no children. If your wife can get pregnant with the commander's child, it will be the honor of your life. This is called good luck, isn't it?" Xian Haixio still smiled with his head down. Chui Ze just thought he was embarrassed and didn't take it seriously. He waved his hand casually and said, "Don't feel embarrassed. In Presang, do you know how many people try their best to send their wives to the commander's bed? As long as you are favored by the commander, your family will be rich and prosperous." Xian Haixio thought of those banquets. Those officers would bring a female companion, and in such cold weather, they would dress extremely sexy. The two people were chatting idly downstairs. The most painful thing for Xian Haixio was that although he wanted to kill all the people in front of him and the beasts upstairs, he had to act flattered and chat with Chui Ze. Fortunately, the commander came down from the building not long after. When he saw Xian Haixio, he raised his hand and greeted him enthusiastically. "Isn't this Haixio? You're back. Why don't you come up and sit with me?" Xian Haixio's teeth were chattering. He tried his best to open his mouth and lowered his head like a loyal dog. "I dare not disturb the commander." Commander Shan laughed. "I knew you were a polite person." He put his hand on Xian Haixio's shoulder and praised, "You have a good wife." Xian Haixio humbled himself into the dust and sent Commander Shan away. He waited until the black Maybach drove away before he hurried back to his home. There were a lot of bloodstains on the sofa. Xian Haixio hugged his wife and burst into tears. There were no more worries in his heart. He must take Li Qingmei away from here. At worst, we'll die together. Even if he died, he would never let that beast touch his wife again. Xian Haixio knew that he could not wait any longer. Otherwise, Who knows which beast under Xian's command will kill his wife one day. He has been in Pilasang for many years and is very familiar with the operating mechanism here. If you want to leave Prison and go to the northern border, you must get a train ticket and a letter of certification. It is extremely difficult to buy these two things through normal channels. Not only does it require a letter of certification issued by the unit, but it also needs to undergo strict review. But when the rules were first established, they provided huge benefits to those who broke them. The stricter the restrictions, the greater the benefits. So, Xian Haixio chose the simplest method: buy. Anyway, I plan to leave KG country, and I won't use the money I saved here. He and Li Qingmei could only take away limited necessary supplies. Therefore, he paid a high price and bought what he needed from the middleman. It was the evening of the next day. It would be safer to act under the cover of night. After they reached the border, according to the information Xian Haixio had found out, it would be easier to take the eastern route of the snow-capped mountain on the border. The night will be the best protective color. Everything was ready. Xian Haixio and Li Qingmei packed up and carefully checked more than 10 times to make sure they had all the supplies. Then, they waited anxiously. This process was undoubtedly a huge torment for them. They worry that something unexpected might happen at any time. For example, their plan to escape is suddenly discovered, and they are arrested. There is a saying that goes, "What you fear is bound to come true." Their inner prayers did not bring them the favor of the goddess of luck. At around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Xian Haixio suddenly received a call. It was a call from the Commander-in-Chief's residence. The Commander-in-Chief will hold a banquet tonight to entertain several important guests from foreign countries. So I called him over to cook. Xian Haixio's heart sank. Because the train ticket and certificate letter he bought at a high price are time-limited. If he cannot leave tonight, he will not be able to buy new certificates and tickets with the money he has left. So, we must go today. After struggling for a long time, Xian Haixio said to Li Qingmei, "Qingmei, you go to Pulitzer Railway Station first. If I am not there by the time of departure, you can take the train and leave by yourself. But don't worry, I will get there in time." Although Li Qingmei was worried, she had no choice but to do this for now. Staying would only be a burden to Xian Haixio. But she said to Xian Haixio, "If you don't come, I won't leave alone. Even if we die, we will die together." Looking at his wife's determined eyes, Xian Haixio felt extremely moved and a little sad at the same time. Could it be that God was really going to be so cruel to him? Xian Haixio had no better solution, so he had to go out alone. Chui Ze has sent a car to pick him up. In recent days, Xian Haixio has felt that Chui Ze's attitude towards him has changed. This is Commander Shan's most terrifying lackey, possessing extraordinary insight, and he is also the person Xian Haixio fears the most. Fortunately, a VIP was coming today, so Chui Ze did not come to pick him up in person. Otherwise, Xian Haixio felt that he might be exposed in front of him. The car drove straight to the Commander-in-Chief's residence. Once on the boat, there was no way to leave the island. Xian Haixio's mind was working frantically. He kept thinking about how to get out of this bad situation and go to the train station to meet his wife. His eyes were looking out the window, and now that he had gained trust, he didn't need his vision blocked. The 2 soldiers who were responsible for watching him did not expect that this cook who had a bright future in Cage Country would have the idea of escaping, so they did not guard him too strictly. When passing by the Nishihibori Hotel, Genkai Hyde suddenly had an idea in his mind. "Wait a minute, stop the car here," he shouted to the driver. The soldier next to him looked over. "What's the matter, Chef Xian? You shouldn't be distracted by other things now. Your most important task is to prepare a dinner for the Commander-in-Chief and his guests." Xian Haixio deliberately raised his voice and said, "Since it is a banquet for the Commander-in-Chief to entertain important guests, of course, we have to prepare the best ingredients. In the food warehouse of Nishihibori Hotel, there are precious ingredients that I have stored before. You guys stop the car here, I'll go over and get the ingredients." Xian Haixio had indeed worked in Nishihibori Hotel before, and both soldiers knew this. In addition, Xian Haixio had not been exposed at this time and was still a very popular favorite in the eyes of everyone, so the 2 of them said, then you should go quickly and come back soon. Today is a very important day. I have to prepare more ingredients and corresponding seasonings. It may take a while, so you have to wait a little longer. Xian Haixio found an excuse to delay time, and the two soldiers did not take it too seriously and nodded in agreement. Only then was Genkai Hyde able to get off the car. He tried to remain calm, then walked into the Nishihibori Hotel and headed towards the kitchen. He has worked here before, so he is very familiar with the terrain. The back kitchen of a high-end hotel usually has a special passage to allow guests to leave secretly at any time. This is for some politicians, celebrities, and businessmen. Xian Haixio walked quickly into the kitchen and then went straight to the back kitchen. He knew Ken Sane's habits. The commander-in-chief is a person with an extremely irregular life and a reverse day and night life. He was still sleeping soundly at this time and would not wake up until midnight. Xian Haixio once lamented that no matter what kind of person Commander Ken Shan was, he was indeed destined to be a noble person. The ancients had a saying about the noble people's behavior called 8 Reversals of Noble People. This saying comes from Feng Linlong's History of Laughter from Past to Present. You can use these traits to determine whether you have the potential to become a noble person. The first countermeasure is that you should sleep in and drink at night and get up early and sleep well. Ordinary people work from sunrise to sunset and rest at night. However, the powerful and wealthy people are mostly active at night and sleep until noon during the day. The second countermeasure is that the mind should be at ease and should be worked hard, and the body should be at ease and should be worked hard. Ordinary people mostly engage in physical labor, which makes them physically exhausted but relatively relaxed mentally. Noble people seldom engage in physical labor, but they think a lot. The third countermeasure is not to spend money where it should be spent, and to spend it where it should not be spent. Noble people cherish money, and do not spend it casually even in places where it seems necessary to spend money. And yet, in seemingly meaningless places, money is spent without hesitation. For example, many rich people do not like to buy luxury cars or mansions, and their clothes are relatively simple. However, when it comes to long-term investment and social skills, they are willing to invest. The fourth countermeasure is to take medicine when you are not sick, but refuse to take medicine when you are sick. Urine usually pay attention to their health, so they use various means to nourish and exercise. But when you really get sick, you are cautious about using medication. The fifth countermeasure is to try to do it when no one else is doing it, and to do nothing when everyone is doing it. Noble people are better at seizing opportunities, and they don't do the things that everyone is scrambling to do. And you can get ahead of others before they discover the opportunity. As the stock god Buffett once said, "When others are crazy, I am afraid. When others are afraid, I am crazy." The sixth counterintuitive thing is that when you invite someone, you want them to come, but when they invite you, they don't want to go. When a distinguished person invites others to dinner, he hopes that others will get the treat to show off his face. When someone invites you to dinner, you tend to be late or refuse. The seventh countermeasure is that when buying cheap things, you don't think they are too expensive. When buying expensive things, you must buy them at a low price. When a noble person spends a lot of money, he is not hesitant or sad, and he buys what he needs. But when it comes to things that seem cheap but have no actual value, he is very careful with his money and is reluctant to spend money. The eighth counterpoint is that he does not love beautiful wives and concubines very much, but does love ordinary maids. This item is purely a personal hobby. To put it simply, when you are well fed and warm, you will think about sex, and domestic flowers are not as fragrant as wild flowers. As the old saying goes, a wife is not as good as a concubine is not as good as a secret lover, and a secret lover is not as good as not being able to love. Xian Haixio discovered many of these characteristics of the 8 rebels of the nobles in Commander Shan. Therefore, Xian Haixio felt that as long as everything went well today, they could escape before the commander discovered them. After all, no one would disturb the commander's sweet dream just because a little cook ran away. Xian Haixio walked out from the back door. He was really lucky because a taxi happened to pass by the road outside the back door at that moment. Only in the capital city of Pilasang are there such luxuries as taxis. He quickly hailed a taxi and immediately asked the driver to drive to the station. The soldier who was responsible for picking him up didn't expect that he would run away alone. He just thought that he was carefully selecting the ingredients, so he patiently waited for Genkai Hyde to come out outside the Nishihibori Hotel. At this moment, the taxi was speeding all the way towards the station. There were almost no vehicles on the road, so Xian Haishio arrived at the station in less than half an hour. At this time, there were less than 20 minutes left before the train departed. He saw Li Qingmei, who was wrapped up tightly, at the station. He walked over quickly and held her cold little hand. "Let's go," he said in a low voice, and the two of them hurried into the station. I don't know if it was God's mercy, but the station was not delayed today. You have to know that Keiji is a country that lags behind Huaxiu by nearly half a century. At this time, train delays are commonplace. But on this day the train arrived on time. The two of them hurriedly got into the car, which was empty with no one in it. After all, few people would travel from Prisang to that poor place in the north. It takes 5 hours by train to reach the northern region from here. Li Qingmei leaned in Xian Haishio's arms and closed her eyes. The two could no longer do anything else at this point and could only choose to leave everything to God to decide. By now, the two soldiers must have noticed that he was missing. I just don't know how much effort those people will use to find them. After all, no matter how hard one thinks, it would be hard to imagine at the first glance that they would have such a bold idea. From the capital in the central part of Cage Kingdom, they traveled all the way to the northern border, trying to cross the snow-capped mountains to reach the neighboring Khotan Empire. And this is not a person who is living in poverty and unable to survive. But he is a highly respected and admired person. Xian Haishio prayed in his heart that they would never find out about all this. However, Xian Haishio was still too naive after all. After he left for a while, the two soldiers finally became impatient. No matter how precious the ingredients are, it would take more than half an hour to get them. The two of them entered the Nishihibori Hotel, intending to see what had delayed Genkai Hyde, and they immediately discovered that Genkai Hyde had escaped through the back door of the kitchen. The two soldiers were stunned on the spot. They had never thought that such a development would happen, but due to the good quality of the guards, the two of them immediately reported to the guards Captain Chui Ze. When Chui Ze heard the news, he felt it was incredible for the first time. Who would give up such a bright future to betray the country of Cage and the commander? But Xian Haishio had no reason to leave without saying goodbye during such an important task. Chui Ze reacted quickly and immediately called Xian Haishio's home. After no one answered the phone, he confirmed a fact: Xian Haishio and his wife Li Qingmei were planning to escape. The reason is very simple because of what Commander Shan did to Li Qingmei. Chui Ze found it difficult to understand Xian Haishio's behavior. He thought it was extremely stupid, but he knew that there were always such stupid people in the world. He immediately said to the two soldiers, "Go and check where they went." Even a smart man like Chui Ze could hardly imagine that they would start from Prisang and head straight to the northern border. He just thought that the two of them were looking for a place to hide. The two soldiers immediately went to look for the taxi based on the video footage near the hotel. There are a limited number of taxis in the entire city of Pilasang, and even fewer people can afford to hail a taxi. Moreover, these taxi drivers are all public officials of the country of Cage, so they are easy to find. Less than an hour after Hyun Hae-soo and Lee Sung-mi boarded the train to the north, Choi Taek found out that they had arrived at the train station and were preparing to leave. But here comes the problem again. The identities were all fake. The supporting documents are genuine. That's the kind of fake certificate that's real. Is it difficult to understand? It's very simple. The certification documents are issued by the relevant institutions of KG State and are legally binding. But the identity information is not that of Xian Haishio and Li Qingmei. As I said before, this is easy to do as long as you can afford the price. Therefore, Chui Ze was unable to confirm where Hyun Hae-soo and Lee Sung-mi had gone for a while. He cursed inwardly. "You ignorant bastard." At this moment, he didn't care about Xian Haishio's escape at all. He was just a cook, and his departure would not cause any loss to the country of KG. We can also find a replacement chef for the next banquet to entertain foreign guests. But the most troublesome thing is how to explain to Commander Shan. Commander Shan has recently become very interested in Lee Sung-mi, a gentle little Asian girl. The woman's escape would anger the commander, making him feel that his authority was challenged. In such an era, dignity and face are things that important people value very much. If it is not handled properly, the subordinates will feel that the commander is no longer capable and will develop evil intentions. Chui Ze gritted his teeth and ordered his men, "Check which trains are there during that time period. Check them one by one. Also, send someone to Xian Haixio and Li Qingmei's hometown immediately." The soldier said, "But they are all foreigners." Chui Ze was stunned for a moment before he thought of this. He raised his voice and cursed, "Bastard! Check the places they have been to. Don't let any place go." He must catch those two people before Commander Shan gets angry. The train rumbled towards the north. Xian Haixio and Li Qingmei, the ill-fated couple, were worried and prayed to God that no accidents would happen. Fortunately, they are just insignificant minor characters, and at this juncture, no one dares to disturb Commander Shan because of their affairs. Therefore, after some investigation, even if Chui Ze guessed that they had the possibility of fleeing to the north, he had no way to make an accurate judgment. Compared with the foreign guests received today, this couple is obviously not that important. Another very important point is that it saved the couple. That is, the technological level of KG country is quite backward. If you are in the Jiangnan area, if you leave 1 second, your location can be accurately located the next second through various online channels. Even telephones are not widely available in KG country now, so even if Chui Ze wants to contact the person in charge of each train station, it will take some effort. Xian Haixio and Li Qingmei were not stupid either. After discussing it, they chose to get off the train separately in order not to make themselves too obvious. Sure enough, not long after, the train staff came over from the end of the carriage to inspect. And his target is also those couples. There was no problem with Xian Haixio and Li Qingmei's identity documents, and they passed the inspection smoothly. They went through this kind of examination 3 times in total, and their hearts were almost in their throats. After the inspection, the two agreed to leave the train station one after the other, walk all the way north, and meet again in a deserted place. The emperor is far away, and the north is a very poor and backward place called Cage. When Chui Ze's orders came here, it was difficult to ensure their execution. After all, it is difficult for civil servants in such remote areas to have enough food on weekdays. They are all hungry and look pale and thin, with deep sunken faces. Dear viewers, thanks for staying with me. We'll try to get you more updates. Please like and subscribe and share the video with your friends. Love you all.